Hello, welcome back to another video on astrology. In this video, I'll be talking to you about what results can one expect if Saturn occupies the second house in the horoscope. Whenever we say a second house, there are two things that you should always remember. One, that we are talking with reference to the ascendant, also known as the Lagna, which is the rising sign in the horoscope, which is the most important reference point. So most people know only where the moon is, and therefore they know their moon sign, and many do not know their Lagna. So before you continue with this video, you must make sure that you know your ascendant, and only then you can start counting houses from the ascendant, which is number one, and the next sign immediately next to it is the second Rashi, the second zodiac sign. Sometimes it is also referred as the second house. But whenever we say house, more important than the Rashi chart, I'm not saying it's not important, it is important, but for getting better predictions, you will have to resort to the Bhava chart, also known as Chalit chart. In case you do not know about the difference between the Rashi chart and the Bhava chart, please use the keywords and include my name and search it on YouTube. I'm sure you will be able to find one or two videos. And I also done a video on how to use Jagannatha Hora, which is a free online software where you can calculate the Bhava chart positions within a second. So I'm going to refer mainly to the book popularly known as Bhrigu Sutram, one of the foundation books of astrology by none other than the great, or perhaps the greatest astrologer, Sage Bhrigu. And Sage Bhrigu has in this book you find just throughout the book there is only one type of reading: planets placed in different houses, sun in the first, sun in the second, sun in the third, and so on. So like that, as we flip through the pages, you will come to Saturn in the second house. And the book that I'm referring to is a translation by Dr. G.S. Kapoor. I take this opportunity to thank him for doing such a wonderful job. And this book has stood by me for all these 30 years, and I have efficiently used it, and I've regularly used it, and sometimes both me and the clients have been shocked by the accuracy of Bhrigu Sutram. So before getting into this, I would like to say, do not confine yourself with whatever just Bhrigu Sutra has said. For example, you may refer to Brihad Jataka, and maybe you may refer to Faladipika, or you may refer to any book which lets you know the effect of a planet if it occupies a particular house. In some cases, the Rashi chart position and the Bhava chart position will be the same. Only rarely you find that the position of a planet has shifted in the Bhava chart. But in case it has shifted, give more importance to the shifting, because it was with some purpose that the planet has shifted in the Bhava chart. So that is something very important. Saturn in the second house. How often does that happen? As you know, there are only 12 houses in the horoscope, and the chances are for Saturn being in the second house, it's just 1 out of 12, which means 1 out of every 12 people that you know most probably has Saturn in the second house. So please do not think it is so easy to use astrology. It's not. The reason is that Saturn might be in the second house, but it will be in a different Rashi. So out of that you get another 12 types. So it will be like 1 out of 144, because Saturn is not in the same place. So that makes astrology very complex also. And apart from that, who knows, Saturn might be with a different planet. Saturn might be, conjunct someone whom he likes, and maybe he's with somebody whom he hates, and maybe Saturn is severely afflicted, maybe Saturn is debilitated. All kinds of things can happen. Only after you know these attributes will you be able to make a concrete statement, or you can guess, you can infer what the planet is supposed to deliver in this person's life. Now, before you see a sample of Saturn being in the second house. And you could have this in different formats like this. For example, even this is a Saturn in the second house, and this is also a Saturn in the second house. So you could actually keep shifting it all over the place, like 12 lagnas, and then next house you can place Saturn and say this Saturn is in the second house. And if you know the basics of astrology, you also know that the results can't be the same. So now that is the difficulty in astrology. But nevertheless, we will have to give lots of importance to whatever Sage Bhrigu had said, because that is the foundation. And whether that is going to happen or not is to be judged from the horoscope. Okay, so without any further delay, let's look into what Sage Bhrigu had said. And you can see here, he says, Saturn in the second house, Lagna Dvitiye Shani Phalam. Dvitiya is in a second house. Lagna, from Lagna, it's always from Lagna. Also, Shani Phalam, the result are the fruits of Saturn. Dravya Bhava. Abhava is, diminishing, not growing. It's becoming less. Dravya is actually wealth. And as you expect, Dr. G.S. Kapoor translates it as the native will remain in want of money, financial difficulties. So, do we think, I mean, every human being has money, right? It's not about anybody. I mean, you rarely find people having zero money. Everybody has some money, which obviously mean not enough. So Saturn in the second is not enough. That's the key word. And you will be surprised to find celebrities having Saturn in the second house. You'll also be happy to find that there are Swamijis, saints like our, the greatest seers of India, the Kanchi Paramacharya, Chandrasekharendra, has Saturn in the second house. And he never, liked money at all. Okay, so you will find some of this will happen in certain conditions. And when you see that celebrities and extremely rich people have Saturn in the second, you may get confused and say maybe astrology is not that dependable. But it's only because we have not understood it properly. So beginners in astrology always make this mistake. Saturn in the second house. Sage Bhrigu says Dravya Bhava, and I find extremely rich people having this combination. But if you start investigating, you will eventually find out these people had experienced poverty at some time or other, and that is something that they will never be able to forget. Okay, so I leave it to you to do a research on the celebrities of India, where of people who had Saturn in the second house and were rich. But you will eventually find out that they had gone through poverty, or maybe the money that they have with them is not enough for them. So they feel very poor, shortage of money. It's not enough. And then they do sometimes even go after wealth. But take the other side. If a real God man, like a seer or a rishi, like Chandrasekharendra Swamiji, if he has Saturn in the second house, he's very happy with it. He says, thank God, I don't want money at all. I don't need anything. Because the second house is the house of family, kutumba. So it will deny family, it will deny money. Everything that you are possessive about is the second house. So Saturn will make sure that you don't have any of these things. So even if you see the rich people having Saturn the second, you will find that they had some serious problems in marriage. They're not very happy, and they're not happy in the kutumba, the family matters. You can see that also. So Dravya Bhava, Dharadvayam. Now this seems to be on the flip side, the other side. Having two wives. Whereas our great Swamiji Chandrasekharendra remained unmarried. How do we conclude? How do we understand these contradictions? Now the two wives is an excess of wife, and so if you go to the flip side, it will be no wives at all. So this is the most important feature of astrology. So Daradvayam, two wives, can happen for many people. Or actually, it is not even two wives, it is more than one wife. Papa Yute, if with malefics, Dara Vanchana. Dara is woman, or Vanchana is deceiving, cheating. Papa Yute, only if Saturn is afflicted. It need not be only affliction, need not be only by Yute is together with malefics, Papa Grahas, malefics. But it can also be what they call aspect in astrology, being looked upon, sometimes straight opposite. If Saturn is looked upon by somebody on the opposite side, like maybe Mars looking straight at Saturn in the second house, then Papa Yute gets fulfilled, and then the person might be deceiving women, Dara Vanchana. But the next word is Matadipaha. Mata is actually religious institutions, but I found that they were not actually all of them were having running a religious institution, but they were running some kind of a group where they were quite famous, and they had a lot of fan following. Okay, need not be all the time only religious institution, but some have been the head of religious institutions. For example, both the Kanchi Swamis, who are Chandrasekharendra, and the next person who took over, Sri Jayendra Saraswati, both of them had sat in the second house, and that's beyond just a coincidence. So, but Dara Vanchana, Matatipaha comes sometimes together. So that explains why many people in the world, those who are in religious institutions, might actually being doing this behind the screen. It's possible. Alpa Kshetravan. Alpa is actually again reduced, not enough. Kshetravan might be not not much lands. So as you go through the translation, you see no lands and will suffer from eye troubles, which is Netra Rogi. Why Netra Rogi is because Saturn rules darkness, and when you have eyesight problem, it's usually related to the light, and so Saturn works against light. And apart from that, the second house is the house of the eyesight, Netra. So any malefics in the second is definitely expected to harm the eyes, but Saturn is something very specific, because Saturn is against light and darkness. He stands for darkness. So that may be the reason. This is another example of the same Saturn in the second, but this time it's quite different, because for Taurus ascendant, Saturn is considered the one of the best planets, or the best planet, Raja Yoga Karaka, and because of that, you have an additional point here that Saturn is in the second house. So this is going to be totally the opposite condition. So here the person will be extremely rich, and you will have to downplay the role of if you think Saturn in the second is going to reduce wealth. Another way of understanding why Saturn in the second may be reduction of wealth is because just the opposite. Jupiter in the second is very good for wealth. Though, this is the view of Sage Bhrigu, because second house is income and expansion, and Jupiter is called the Dhanakaraka. Though people may say it is, they'll use this principle Karako Bhavanashti or Karako Bhavanashya, and say that when the Karaka sits in the house, it spoils that house. It may be so when the said planet is severely afflicted, otherwise it's going to give only good results. So Jupiter in the second is good for wealth, and Saturn in the second is bad, because Saturn always is anti enjoyment, and it's against all these things. So Saturn actually means just the opposite: losing wealth, philanthropy, donations, charity. But this Saturn is supposed to be give very good results, because it happens to be the lord of the 9th and the 10th, and Yogakaraka sitting in the house number 2. So even if you go by simple ideas like if you refer to Brihat Parashara Horashastra, volume 1, the what is the result of the ninth lord being in the second or the 10th lord being the second, you only get Dhanavan, wealthy. So you'll have to downplay what we have read in Bhrigu Sutram saying that this Saturn is bad. But the same Saturn can turn totally different if you introduce Mars here. If Mars occupies this particular house, meaning if you see Mars is with Saturn, then you'll have to be very careful with these predictions, because now Mars becomes the lord of the 12th in the second. 12th house is house of loss, and so he might make Mars might influence Saturn to the and we get a new situation now where we say Saturn is afflicted by Mars. So if I read out from other books, for example, as given by Dr. G.S. Kapoor, he says other views. Brihad Jataka. The person concerned will be immensely rich but will be deprived of his wealth by a king and will suffer diseases in the face. So here a new dimension, because he says deprived of his wealth by a king. A king will work upon it. He will take away the luck of the person. So a king usually means like sun, and Saturn is opposite the sun. So that's why Brihad Jataka has informs us in this manner, and will suffer diseases in the face, because the second house is house of face. Phalatipika almost comes to the same predictions, having some problem in the face, but we learn through questionable means. So there are actually possibilities for updation. So it's not that you will have to reject later books. You will also have to consider many other books, but be very careful when you start deviating from the main text, as given in Sage Bhrigu's Bhrigu Sutram. Saravali will be afflicted in the face. So the problem in the face has been repeatedly mentioned by everyone. So I've just given you an example, just a few example of how you can read something from a book and then try to understand or read a horoscope with what is given in the book. Sometimes you'll have to stick to the book, and sometimes you'll have to do your own thinking and then figure out for yourself. But whatever is stated by Sage Bhrigu is most probably going to happen as it is said. That's how you should look at it. So if you want to get the opposite result as what is mentioned here, then that particular Saturn should be extremely good. It should be well placed. Both the sages of Kanchipuram, who we refer as the Paramacharya, Chandrasekharendra, has this combination, that Saturn is in the second in this way. And this is how it looks like in Sri Jayendra Saraswati, the person who took over from Chandrasekharendra Swamiji. Saturn the second once again. So this is one example, and two examples. And then you have Rajinikanth, one of the superstars of Tamil cinema, having Saturn in the second house. And you also have Saturn in the second house for the ex CM, who was also an actress, Selvi Jayalalitha, Saturn in the second house. So I would like you to do your own research on these things, and please participate by using the comment section, but only talk about what we have discussed in this video, so that some of my students can help in answering your questions. In case you have any doubts, please type them out in the comment section, and whenever I find the time, I'll answer them for you.